Welcome to Winchester in the Know. I'm your host, Sergeant Dan Perenick of the Winchester Police Department, and I'm your school resource officer and work closely to keep youth, adults, and seniors safe within our community each and every day. I am also the police department's liaison to the Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community, and in partnership with WinCam, we will bring you a topic on each show that you should know about. Through sharing information with our community, we hope to prevent issues and problems that we are seeing and dealing with often. We also hope that our parents use this information to assist them while parenting their children at all ages and save them hardships others have experienced in the past. We know all are very busy, but please take some time to view this short program and let us know your thoughts. Today's topic is about social emotional wellness, and we are joined by Amber Haines, adjustment counselor from Winchester High School, and Jason Levine, our new director of counseling, health, and wellness. Welcome.
Thank you.
Excellent. It's nice to be with you guys. Jason, welcome to the town of Winchester.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you with us. And Amber, it's been great to see you. I hope you had a great summer, and I look forward to working with you the next week or so.
Yeah, me too.
Jason, can you just introduce yourself for our community and give them a little background about who you are and also what your role is with the Winchester Public Schools?
Sure. My name is Jason Levine, as Danny said. I have been school psychologist with Wakefield Public Schools for the past 12 years. Been a school psychologist practicing for the past 14. And spent the later end of my career in Wakefield coordinating their social, emotional, and mental health services and activities. So that's what I bring to join you guys here in Winchester. I'm very excited as I take over a very large department of very skilled clinicians and teachers.
Well, that's great. And Amber, your role at Winchester High School, can you tell us a little bit about your role?
Yeah, so I've been an adjustment counselor here at the high school, which is a new position. 5 years ago, they changed from clinical counselor to an adjustment counselor position. We focus on short-term individual counseling for any student that is struggling with their social emotional well-being. That could look like anxiety symptoms or depression symptoms, anything that's impairing their wellness in school. And so I work with parents, I work with the coalition, I work with groups and do individual and group counseling, and I also work in the guidance department at the high school, so it's been great.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about what you just completed yesterday, which is the mental health first aid program?
Yep.
And talk about the school piece and the community piece that you've brought to Winchester.
Yeah, so about 5 years or 4 years ago now, I think 3 or 4 years ago, I'm losing my time a little bit, the district asked that we really wanted to do more around social emotional. And so they asked me to go get trained in youth mental health first aid, which is an international program that is based out of Australia, focusing on recognizing signs and symptoms of youth mental health and creating a five-step action plan to execute to support that young person. So there's assessment with risk of suicide or harm. There is listening non-judgmentally and helping young people feel empowered to use their own resources and find ways to help them use their own coping skills. So we just trained 11 new district staff, and we've trained over 120 people within the community and also within the school district. So we've had completed our 8th training, really excited about it, and we're gonna have our 9th training in October before my co-facilitator, Alexis Cabral, who is a psychologist at McCall Middle School, we've been trained together and we've been doing the program, and she's going on maternity leave in November, so we got to get those trainings out.
Yeah, that's terrific to hear about the initiative that you've taken on. 121 people trained, and I know it's not going to stop there.
Yep.
Within the police department, we've also sent an officer to be trained and come back to our station and train our officers in mental health first aid. We just did training also, which we think is so important because now our officers have interaction with folks throughout the community, just like our educators, and just like your community folks, so that we can help our young people and help people in the community in general. You know, it's a stressful world that we live in. There's a whole bunch of dynamics that cause us to be stressed and anxiety and lead to some depression. What are we seeing, Jason, coming from Wakefield, Amber, you know, here at our own high school, talking with the public? What are we seeing, you know, with our kids? What makes us get stressed, and how can we help them?
I mean, I would say one of the things that I see everywhere is really the overscheduling of our students, and that's not just by parents, but also the kids' want and desire for more, and being able to show that they are capable of more. I mean, when we look at our college acceptance rates around even local colleges, the acceptance rates are far down and continue to move down, and our kids are trying to find ways to set themselves apart from the next student that's applying. So I find that in many communities, our kids are taking on not just one activity or two activities, they're filling up their schedule with more activities than they can even handle, and also trying to be not just a part of it, but the number one person in that.
Sure. Amber, how about yourself? What are you seeing? And what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jason. I do think that we live in a community where it's really important to be high achievers. And so how do we balance those expectations for ourselves, what other people place on us, and feel good and have a happy balance? I also think that I was thinking about this question earlier, and that we live in a world where it's 24-hour access to everything. And that includes news, that includes social media. And so before, when we would tell young people that it's time to go to bed, there wouldn't be access to phone, and there wouldn't be access to say, like, oh, my friend is struggling, because so many of our young people want to help their friends.
Right.
And I think that impacts sleep. I think that impacts nutrition. And then couple that with the need to fulfill their lives, not just to enrich their lives, which is important. I think really having some really quality experiences is wonderful. That creates that happiness, right? But it's more of like, if you ask somebody how they're doing, their first response is busy. I'm like, that's not a feeling. Right. So I feel like the 24-hour access, no downtime, social media, feeling like they have to compare themselves to others. And when you're online, you're only seeing that perfect vision.
Yeah.
Right.
So I can be working with a young person being like, no, that's not the real world. And yet they're like, but that is my real world.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So
If I could even jump in
Sure.
on that, I think one of the other things that social media does that definitely has an impact on mental health is, you know, years ago before social media, if something happened outside with your friends or in school, that was something that was hard to deal with, you had the night to sort of recover from it and think about it, but also let it go. Our students don't have the opportunity to let it go as much, because something happens online, they're continually re-exposed to it, and people continue to make comments on it, or it's an open dialogue for anyone that wants to comment on it on social media, which keeps re-exposing them to the stress that was initially caused. So something that they could have maybe let go of at one point is something that they're now hanging on to for that whole 24-hour cycle.
So naturally, years ago, you would unplug naturally,
Right.
but now for us to unplug, we have to be conscious
Yes.
about it, and for our young people, put a lot of pressure on themselves, and our adults to be cognizant of that. It's real important to be able to unplug, and that's some of the strategies we've been talking about, and where you need to really think about it and set that up as a natural course. Let's talk about what's the end result of this now. Anxiety, what are we seeing in reference to anxiety and things that you work with, Amber, some of the things that you see?
yeah, I think for a long time, young people obviously are still questioning their identity, and they're building. This is the time where they are developing their identity, and they are supposed to take risks and be curious about things. And yet now that they don't have that time to recover, they're continuing to self-doubt. And that ability to make decisions for themselves, it seems like they're having some struggles with that. And so my hope is always to build that foundation, or to build off the foundation that they already have,
Right.
to build self-confidence, to say to them, it's okay to make a mistake, and that you're supposed to make mistakes, and then yes, trust your gut. Nobody is trusting their gut anymore. And I would love to see them start to feel a little bit more confident with their decisions. So I do see that anxiety. I do see that kind of manifesting specifically into panic attacks.
Yep.
And that, I think, often I hear so many young people across genders express that they're feeling that panic. And I think that there's also a lower tolerance for frustration and we used to be like delayed gratification, and that's where it comes back to that 24-hour
Instant.
access.
Yep.
If I want something, I get it now.
Yep.
And that's just not how our body works. And so I do think that's impacting the anxiety and the emotional regulation piece across the board.
If I could add on that, I think that one of the other things that our students struggle with is the range of emotions. It's natural for humans to feel anxious. It's natural for humans to feel depressed. But when a lot of our kids are experiencing it for the first time or the first few times, it's 0 to 100. It's not aren't real cognizant of that middle ground of, I'm a little anxious today, or, I'm not feeling great. It becomes quickly down to, I'm very depressed or I'm very anxious. And I think part of the teaching that we can do in schools and our parents is really being able to teach that middle ground, that it is okay to be a little anxious today. Sometimes anxiety is good for you. It's okay to not always have your best day, but is it your worst day?
Sure. Let me ask you, as far as age-wise, where are we starting to see anxiety with our school kids? I know you work specifically with high school students, but you work with a lot of counselors in the area. And Jason, you worked with a great team. Where are we starting to see it, and where should parents be aware of it so that they can put in some great coping mechanisms and do some work on it?
I would say we're seeing it through the lifespan.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, again, we're seeing it in different ways, and even the very, very young kids, we're seeing those natural emotions of being anxious or not feeling great. But again, it comes back to, are we teaching them skills to deal with those emotions and regulate them? We can all think of the crying baby. What emotions is that baby feeling? It didn't just start crying just because. There's some emotion that drives it. And, as kids grow up, being able to teach them developmentally appropriate lessons to deal with that, you're not going to teach your kindergartner the same thing that you would do to a baby, or the same thing you would do to a high school student.
Right. And some strategies, some things, mindfulness and meditation, are those some things that would help in a situation like this? Amber, when you work with young people, what are some things that you work with them on to get them to feel more comfortable with what they're doing?
Yeah, so I'm big on as much prevention as possible. And so Jason talked about that attunement piece of trying to check in with yourself before it becomes a level 10 on that scale of 1 to 10. Because when you're at a 10, you're already at that crisis. And when you're in crisis mode, you want to do de-escalation strategies as quickly as possible. So I personally like to use a lot of sensory integration techniques with teenagers in particular. And also I use them with younger kids as well in different kind of areas of my professional life. But a sensory integration technique could be as simple as having a glass of water in front of you, or getting that cup of hot chocolate to help center yourself and ground yourself so that you're not so much in your head, you're focusing on how your body is feeling. And I love mindfulness, and I love guided meditation. That's something that I personally practice and I also use with young people. And at first, if a high schooler hasn't participated in it, they're a little like, "What are you doing to me, Miss Haines?" And then I'm like, "Settle down. It's about 5 minutes of your life. That's 2 commercials. We're good to go." And so I use the Stop, Breathe, Think app. I find it really helpful. It's friendly, user friendly, and it's not a super commitment, but we want to create that consistent ritual for them so that when they do have a crisis, they have the tools to use. We're not going to remember what to do, or I'm not going to go out for a run if I'm sobbing and crying and having a panic attack.
Right.
So we need to know what our internal resources are so that when everybody else is not around, what can we do? And that's our body. And I feel like that's been the best approach. And when I'm working with the guidance counselors and we do parent coffees or we do junior and freshman workshops, when we're doing different workshops, I partner with them and I actually have everybody practice guided meditation. We do a 3-minute meditation and then we do a couple other sensory integration exercises and then along with some strength-based talk. And the kids seem to really respond to it. So every young person throughout their high school will get exposed to it at some level, and that's our hope.
Can we get you to come to the police station and do that with us?
And we can. I'm happy to do it.
Which is terrific that you do it with the adults and you do it with the kids.
Yeah, because I do it with parents,
Yeah.
and they respond well to it. So.
Danny, I think it's real important to take out one of the things that Amber just mentioned, is that these are tools. And, we look for when, mindfulness is an overarching umbrella that has a lot of different pieces to it. Meditation being one of those. But this is just another tool for our students to have in their toolbox. I mentioned that we want to be teaching them strategies as they grow up that are developmentally appropriate. Every time that we expose our students to these different tools is another opportunity for them to find what works for them, because not every student it's going to click with them for meditation or
Right.
whatever the tool is. We've got to find what makes sense for each student.
And we're talking because both of you are professionals within the school district, but also there's outside of district therapy and support and a bunch of resources that they could reach out to either one of you for resources to support them outside of the school setting. Let's talk a little bit about the negative aspects that could happen. How about self-harm? Are we seeing self-harm? I know over the years working with you, Amber, at the high school, and we talk about it because we want to make sure people are eyes wide open about it. Where are we at with people exhibiting self-harm type of issues?
Yeah, well, the data from Youth Mental Health First Aid says that about 5 to 19% of youth, that's ages 12 to 18, are participating in this self-harm behavior. And that it's an underlying problem it's not a specific disorder, but it's underlying depression or anxiety, however they're coping. So it is a coping strategy, but it's an unhealthy coping strategy. And I would say that we are continuing to see it here at the high school, and that we continue to address it, partner with parents, because we need to make sure that they're aware of the problem and that we are finding support and solutions for that young person. So we might be providing that support in the realm of a referral for individual counseling.
Sure.
Or alternative therapy, whatever that parent is open to receiving and ready to receive. And I think that parents have been very open to receiving this support. So we keep an active mental health provider list at the high school. So if anybody ever is struggling with this issue, and then we do a lot of psychoeducation with the teachers
Yep.
around how to support the student, because each student is having an individual experience with that, and so it's what their level of comfort is of how it is exposed and what that looks like. And then we talk about the factors that are alarming when it comes to self-harm, in particular with the contagion factor. So luckily, I don't think that we're at that level. That's usually not necessarily in a public school setting from my experience, but we are seeing it, and I think that the teachers are doing a wonderful job of, through their professional development that they've received over the last couple of years that I've had experience with, they've really received that well. And they identify the students, they communicate with either the guidance counselor or adjustment counselor or administrator, and then we find or take the necessary steps to support that young person.
And it affects both male and females, correct?
Yes.
Because sometimes the perception was
It
one
can look
over the other.
different. So there's various forms of self-injury, ranging from cutting to burning to excessive tattooing. And I want to express that word excessive because it's maybe typical for somebody to get a 1 or 2 tattoos, and a placement of tattoos. So if anything's above, typically above the neck, it's something that we would pay more attention to. Excessive piercings, and then excessive abuse of alcohol or drugs. Eating disorder could be considered self-injury behavior, pulling hair.
I think one of the things, speaking directly to your question about males and females, about 10 to 15 years ago, there was a lot of data that had supported that 3 or 4 out of 10 females experienced self-harm, and that the rates weren't so high with males. These days, the data has really come back to say more that those numbers are evening out, that males are just as vulnerable to self-harm as females. But as Amber said, a lot of times it looks very different.
And I would also just like to point out that we continue to maybe see some discrepancies because of how young females are identified before young males are identified. So same with anxiety and depression. The numbers are probably pretty even. I'm not sure of the specific data, but how they're identified because of maybe social stigma that is attached to, and how girls receive help versus how boys receive help, and how depression can often look like irritability, and that might lead to disciplinary action versus receiving counseling.
Absolutely.
So that could be one factor.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and I think it's real important for our youth to understand that so that they can reach out to any one of a trusted adult, especially a clinician, to ask for help, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And then also for the parents to be able to have that communication, open communication with them, discussions, and if they recognize something, to reach out to a provider for some support. And it's okay, because a lot of us are stressed. We have a lot going on in our lives today, and like you said, it's 24/7 nonstop. Can you just talk a little bit about the GEMS program for us? I love seeing the program at the high school. You've done a great job with it. Can you just spend a moment on what you do with the GEMS program?
Of course, they're my girls.
Yes, yes.
So GEMS is Girls Empowered by More, and the program started 5 years ago when 2 senior girls wanted to do something for the younger girls in their generation that they felt like they were really struggling with self-confidence and coping strategies, and also feeling connected to their peers. So it started with only about 6 to 8 girls, and from that it became a mentoring program, and now we have over 25 girls and 4 or 5 mentors starting this fall, senior mentors.
That's great.
And they're really excited about it. We meet about 2 to 3 times a cycle, depending on somebody's lunch schedule. So it gives the girls an opportunity to connect with girls that maybe they aren't in their social circle, or maybe they're struggling socially, and we talk about topics that they want to talk about. So it's an opportunity for myself to lead a discussion, and then the senior girls will co-facilitate, and then once a month the senior girls, at least once a month, it ends up typically being more, But my expectation is that once a month, the senior girls plan activities without me.
Great.
That where they get together outside of school, and that could look like going to the play together, going to a soccer game, going to the mall for cupcakes or whatever. And they've gone over to each other's houses. And the reason why I love it is because some of these girls without this program have said that they would never have had a phone call them up and say, let's go hang out. And to me, that's really sad. So I think that it's girls from all different backgrounds, and it's an opportunity for the senior girls to really grow themselves. And they were like, well, how am I going to be a mentor, Miss Haines? My confidence isn't always the best. And I said, well, guess what? It's a spectrum, and we're all growing. So we just got to work it out.
Terrific idea, the concept, and the girls for the past 5 years. I've been watching the last couple of years, and I really enjoy seeing that grow.
Yeah.
It means a great deal to our school and to our community, so thank you for doing that. As we close up, just over the next moment or so, any advice or suggestions to parents of younger children that are going to be transitioning to middle and high school over the next couple of years? We're going to close up with maybe some thoughts for them. Jason, anything that you can suggest with your experience?
Yeah, I would say two things. One is it takes a village. You know, the saying
Sure.
it takes a village to raise a child couldn't be more accurate. You know, it's not just on the parents, it's not just on the school, it's on our whole community to be able to support our kids and be able to help raise our kids. So to tap into the various resources, sometimes that's hard for parents because they don't know all the resources out there. But that's where I would say to ask, and that number two thing is ask for help.
Right.
You know, we may not always have the right answer for them right away, but we're willing to partner with them and say, hey, let's help you to get the resources that you're looking for.
Don't go it alone, number one. And number two is we've been through this many, many times. They're not alone.
Yes.
I tell a lot of parents that I meet with, you're not alone. So don't go it alone.
Absolutely.
Amber, any suggestions?
I would suggest that to parents, I agree with Jason that you guys aren't alone and that we are working together, and that along with the risk factors of our young people that we work with, there's also a lot of protective factors, and that includes parents. And so though your teenager may be trying to buck and leave you in the dust, it's important for you to still guide them. Absolutely. And have their back and hold them accountable. And I think young people really crave that. And to the young people that I work with, I think that they are very resilient, and that I'm always going to come from a place of strength, and I hope that they can come from that as well, because I can give them all the coping strategies in the world, but I want them to internalize it and realize that they can do that themselves. And they're really great.
Great advice, and thank you. I wish to thank our guests this afternoon, Amber and Jason, for sharing this important information. To find out more, contact Jason Levine at jlevene, Levene, at winchesterps.org. Please let others know in the community about this program and encourage them to view it on demand at wincam.org. If you would like more information about this program or any others within the series, please contact us at winchestercoalition@gmail.com. Lastly, we encourage you to download our Winchester Coalition app 01890, which also contains our text tip line. On behalf of the Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community and WinCam, I thank you for taking the time to join us on Winchester in the Know.